Hello, welcome back. G-Man, My World 67. Well, guess what? I was out junking the other day and I found a couple of Lionel engines. Now, I don't usually buy Lionel engines and I don't usually buy diesels. But I found these two diesel engines. I got a pair of them for $15. The guy said they did not work, they were missing parts, and so here they are. This one's a Texas Special 1055. It's missing the rear coupler. There is a wire down here in the bottom of it that looks like it might be loose. I did try it. It does not work, and we're going to tear into it a little later, and we're going to find out what's going on. It's also been painted white, and not too bad a job, except the pink, the red kind of bleeded through the white and made the white kind of pink. Kind of like it, actually, the way it's repainted. And this is the number 1802. Now, the red Texas Special, conversely, versus this 1802, that red Texas Special is post-war. And probably around the 60s. This, however, is probably from somewhere in 1998 into the early to mid 2000s. You tell that by the number and the type of plastic that was used in the general construction. Now, as I said, I'm not into lino, but for $15, two diesel engines, the possibility of making one or both of them running, sounded pretty good to me, so I took him up on it. Now, he said they were both missing parts, which they are. Let me show you this Alaska. This is what we're going to work on in this session. Get the camera set up on the stand here. Sometimes it wants to work, and sometimes it doesn't. Bear with me. There we go. All right. Now, the first thing I noticed with this was this truck was loose. And so I went ahead and I actually had torn it apart, took the shell off of it, and went ahead and clipped these wires off of this truck chassis, because all this is a chassis, and in order to make it work again, I'd have to get a motor and put a motor back in it, gear it, re-gear it, and make it work, as these chassis on these later models are actually powered. And so this would have been a powered chassis, and as it is, nothing. Now, what I can do, and I might do it later on, is build a frame for it and make it a solid chassis and make a dummy I'm sorry, I got to looking at something else. Make a dummy wheel set for it. Okay, here we go. Now, as I said again, I reiterate, I don't have a lot of diesels. I've got 2 or 3, maybe 4 special diesels that I like. I've got more diesels in K-line. Those are the only modern trains that I really deal with. And I do have a few 3 or 4 K-line diesels. And I like K-line because it's a modern day representation of Marx. But of course K-line now is no more. It's being made now by Williams. But long story short, this model is all electric. It has a electronic chassis, 2 boards, and both wheel sets were powered. Now this has 2 powered wheel sets. One of them, of course, gone, missing. So it's no good. I don't have a Lionel wheel set, dummy or otherwise, for this. So I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to get this up and get it going? Just temporary, but a permanent fix that can be removed later on. And I came up with the idea, of course, of using a Marx dummy truck wheel set. Now you'll notice this has 2 red steps on it. And I added these steps on it because Lionel has on their truck 2 steps. Now this is quite a bit narrower than the Lionel wheel set as to dimension, and it's quite a bit longer. So we had to make some changes in it. First of all, I added these steps on. I glued them in place, and then I took the hot glue and I went over them and reinforced them. Put a reinforcement bar there, and they look pretty good. They're not perfect, but they'll take care of these slots in the frame where the steps go to the original attached wheel set. All right. I checked out the motor. Once I got this old chassis wheel set off and made a couple adjustments in the wires, the rear wheel set works, and it works almost perfectly. I did go ahead and lubricate it just a few minutes ago. It was a little stiff, and now it's working okay. I want to show you something. I got to pick up both pieces in order to do it. Right here is where the original Lionel chassis will sit. Ours is going to sit here because, as I said, this truck is longer, and so it has to come up a little further, which actually worked out because that set our truck here at the end of it and put our coupler in the right position. And it will sit like this. Okay. Now, having said that, real quickly, we're going to try to put it together. Now I'm going to use a nut and a washer on it, which is not something that I always do, but it's a good thing to do. And also I wanted to point out right here on the bottom, you'll see this raised surface. That's the seat that the original truck sits on. Well, we had to recreate that seat for ours, and so I glued a couple of washers, one big washer around the outside, and one smaller washer to the inner side. And I was going to point out also, you see right here, this is a slotted area. And if you look back here, you see the same thing. That's where the backside of the original Lionel truck has a prong that sticks up through that slot. And it works as a guide and also holds that Lionel truck in place on the backside so that it doesn't flop. And it gauges how far it goes from side to side. Well, since we had to move this up, it just worked out that this slot is just in perfect position for our new coupler truck placement. And so when we put our new seat on, that also gave a guide to hold our screw in the proper position. And in the center of the slot, the gauge slot. Okay, we're going to put this screw in tops from the top side. Yeah, get the right screwdriver. It's good to have my hands working back again. I was off for a few days because I didn't have usage of my hands and also was losing usage of my arms. God is good. We hope not to have that particular thing happen again in the near future. Now, I was thinking what I probably should have done actually was put the screw in from the bottom. Do you see this hole? Now, I've got my tool that will allow me to put that on, but it's not quite long enough to go up in there. So what I'm going to have to do, this will fit, but my nut's too big for the driver. So what I'm going to have to do is take that back out. Hold on. Bear with me just a moment. Okay. I changed that screw and put it in from the bottom of the truck. Oops. One thing I didn't do though. Got to reverse the truck. Okay. Got the truck reversed. Screw this nut down on the screw. I gotta be careful with these wires not to pull any of them, the rest of them loose. Go in from the bottom, that hole I showed you in the bottom of the truck. Mark's truck. Hold the nut on the top with your finger and tighten it as tight as you can get it. Now that should it should be tight. Tighten up this chassis a little bit if we can. It's loose. There we go. Now this is centered, so should be pretty good. Full turning radius. I've rebent the coupler so that it's at the proper height for lionel and marks and O-gauge American Flyer. Now we've got that nut pretty tight. And it should not turn out. Now that seat that we built up on the bottom there, so that it'd be at the proper height and so that it would flow like it should, nice and smoothly. We've got that going on. And this is a temporary repair you want to keep in mind. But should temporary be, because you know you got to find another engine and buy a coupler and buy a junk engine or to come up with another truck for it at some time or another, and we'll probably find one. But until we do, we want to make sure that this one's going to work out okay. Need to stay on and stay in place. Now, so we put a little super glue on the thread head of the screw, and that'll keep that nut from working back off. All right. I've already cleaned these up, and what we're going to do is paint this whole thing black. Now we want to assemblage the chassis back to the shell. I'm trying to do 2 or 3 things at once, so bear with me. Got the screws laying down here. Now, there's 4 screws that holds the chassis on. We're going to start with this front side. What I like to do line it up. Get one started. I'm hoping you can see this. It's kind of hard to do it from the camera angle. Need some of that museum wax put in the head of the screw. Now my screwdriver was magnetized, and I need to remagnetize them. They've lost their magnetivity. Sometimes you can take tweezers, but I don't have my tweezers handy. So here's what I'm going to have to do. I'm trying to rush, guys, so just bear with me. I have to try to set it by hand. Getting this. Well, I think that one just broke. What happened to our screw? I don't see it. There it is. It did, it just broke. And if that ever happens to you, just get you some crazy glue and put it back on. But for tonight, we're not going to take the time to fool with it. As I said, I wanted to do a quick video. Line this back up again. Get it repositioned. Grab another screw. Go to this other side. Looks like we're not on in the back. There we go. And line up our hole. Again, screw a screw down inside here. I think what happens is you have to put an angle on the screwdriver somewhat, and I think that puts pressure on those. And I was looking at those earlier. They're not your standard plastic stanchions. They're actually made of that clear plastic, which is a rigid plastic, and it's not quite as forgiving as the plastic the shell is actually made out of. Okay, not all the way down. There we go. Sorry it's taking so long, but you know, you start trying to rush things, things go awry. Back one's a little easier to put in than the front ones. As I said, we're going to paint that front truck black, and we'll do that in this session as we're almost done. Get this screw in here. Alright, I'm going to get the paint and we're going to paint that truck. Alright, here we go. We're going to use this black acrylic paint, and it's a matte. Black and not a gloss black. And I could not find my paint brushes. I got 1,000,001 of them. But I could not find not one. So we're going to use good old Q-tip. Now, the good thing about a Q-tip is you can really put it on heavy. And if you put it on heavy enough, it'll pretty much get into all the cracks and crevices. And what we might have to do is go back over it a second time. Because there's so many little places we've got to get the paint down into. Now, in the absence of saving time, I'm going to go ahead and finish this. And then we'll come back and let you see what it looks like when it's finished. Okay. There it is. It's finished. It's not quite dry yet. Not quite dry yet, but there it is. Now, let's see if it will run. As I said, I had already started it earlier and checked it out and got it to run. But let's see if it's still running. We're going to run it with that new truck forward to start out. See what we got.